Hi guys, I'm Sister Lilia and welcome to my armory. So today, the long-awaited Crusader tutorial. So first up, what you're going to need is some cultists, particularly this guy. The rest of them you can just yeet away, or find other uses for. I know people have used, I think it's this guy for Arco Flage, and I'll be doing that as well. I know I also use, let me just tilt it up a bit, pardon the light blinding things. I know I also use this guy for guardsmen, and I'll be showing that in another video. But yes, I make this guy from this heretic. I'm not being kind, it's a heretic, we all know that. Anyway, let's get started. So for this conversion tutorial, or to do this, what you're going to need is the cultist removed from his sprue, his autogun arms, his base, although if you've got a custom base you can always chop off his feet, chopping off just smoothly there, and you can always do this anyway, just put, so as to put him on a different spot on his base. You're also going to need a militarium you'll need a militarium tempestus torso. You'll also need a skitarii vanguard helmet. You can use other helmets, however these look really cool as you can see from this guy. You're also going to need a militarium tempestus scion torso carapace. What I like to do here is to remove the antennas and sensors off it. These guys don't need them. They're not scions, they're bodyguards. You're going to need a hand with a power sword, a hand and a power sword. Now to make that, if you want to do a hand and a power sword separate using other bits, if you haven't already got one available, what you can do is grab the weapon off the weapon hand off this guy. You just remove it a bit behind the wrist, and then you chop off on here. That's for that arm. As for the other arm, you can always use the hand off, say, a Imperial Guard Sergeant. And indeed, for a bigger conversion that I'm doing using this, you can do that. Alternatively, for power swords, you can also use the skitarii ones. I had a whole lot of them lying aside. And for the shield for this model, I chose to use, and I'll just bend the package so you can see it, Aviriel, the female elf, from Reaper's Bones Dark Heaven line. I think that's the order of it. So yes, particularly what you need of this miniature, and I'll just remove it off camera so as to not smash the camera around the place and so on. Okay. Now, in the old days this model came in metal. Like back when I first got into the hobby and back when I first twigged to the idea of using these shields for stuff, the actual model came in metal. But since it's come in plastic, you can actually physically just pull it out, because what they've done is they've shoved the arm in there. Now, what you're going to want to do is you can actually choose to, if you want to, you can choose to leave the actual hand grip on there, because there's a little, just see if I can show you, there's a little hand grip just above where my nail is. My camera's not that great at showing super high detail, I apologise for that. But I haven't got a spare $100. Several $100s to pay for a really good camera. If I did, I'd already have one. But yes, what you need to do next, I'll just move the camera up a bit. Okay, so now that I have the shield cut out and have the arm removed from it, one thing that's worth mentioning is the actual model has a whole lot of hair down the side of her arm that can be a bit of a nuisance. I've not really managed to always get rid of it properly. There's always a bit here because the plastic itself is a bit flimsy. That being said, here's what it looks like on one that's painted. I just had this arm aside and I might use this in the video in a moment. So yes, what you need to do next for this tutorial is, now you can keep the body of the cultist aside, but what you're going to need to do is actually trim him off at the waist. where his belt is. Just move everything out of the way. You can just cut through along the waistband here, just halfway through where his centre push point is. Okay, so now that that's cut out, I just want to give a little word of warning with knives. I should have said so at the beginning anyway, but be careful. I actually had the knife break, the actual blade on it break in an odd fashion as I was cutting through here. That being said, that won't affect this. This is actually a pretty straightforward thing to do. This model, it doesn't actually need you to have an even edge here, because the spot that you're putting onto is hollow. It's just going to sit on there. And in fact, a rough edge may actually be useful for actually getting the glue to stick. Now, one thing you can choose to do with this model is you can choose to remove the little flaps off the armour plate if you want to. Some of my models I've chosen to, like this one. Others I've chosen not to. For this conversion I'm not going to, because it's not really necessary. It just kind of looks a bit cooler. But if... actually, how was I planning on having this guy? Nope, I think I will. Okay. Change of plans, I am actually going to do that. Basically, the reason you might want to remove them is if you want to keep the pouch there intact. Because there's a little pouch there that you don't have to keep on the model. You can choose to remove it. Who knows what he'd keep in it. Might be carrying scented oils or something. That'd be funny in the middle of a battle, just having an enemy accidentally smack his pouch, or accidentally smacking his own pouch on his armour plate and shattering a vial full of sacred oils. I mean, that'd piss off anyone, suddenly having your oils get spilled everywhere, but yeah. So you could easily, like as you can see here, it sits on here relatively well, even though I've got a pretty rough edge. And it sits better when it's straight, but it can easily be pivoted as well. Now, one thing you can actually do is put some blue tack in there to actually help keep the shape. Actually, I might end up removing that. Like I said before, be careful with knives. They are very sharp, especially the good ones. The blunt ones will actually do different damage to you to sharp ones, but all are dangerous, and I would urge to be careful with them. You may need to also trim around the top edge a little bit more if you're going to be angling the torso in a certain direction, like I've had to here. So yes, now let's get to the fun part, the gluing. I'm just using some random supermarket glue that I had aside, and the stuff's stuffed. Okay. Some other glue I have aside. Not used this particular one before, but it should do the job. Super glue is generally pretty much the same. That being said, one thing I will warn you about is super glue usually has fumes to it. While they aren't very noticeable, well no, they are noticeable, but while they don't necessarily affect you straight away with if you're just building one model, if you're building a whole lot of them, you may have noticed that you end up getting a headache out of it. So what I would suggest actually doing is taking a break for a moment and actually doing something else for a moment there. The decision is exactly what pose do I want it to have. That looks terrible. Funny, but terrible. It'd work better like that, but what I'm going for is more of a shield wall pose. Like, how you pose this is entirely up to you. While these arms are monopose, you can easily repivot them to an extent. Okay. So I've done that like that. Yeah, that'll work. So now that that's done, what you're going to want to do next is come over here to the torso. You're going to want to trim off part of the shoulder. Like, you don't have to do this, it's not necessary, but considering you're going to be using the arms from both sides of the model, you might as well. One thing I would give you, one idea I can say right now for what you can do with what's left, is at the moment kill team is a thing. So you could always build yourself some guardsmen that have robes on the chests, and then Cadian legs and Cadian arms, or Catachan legs and Catachan arms. So what you're going to be able to do now is actually attach that on there, hooking part of it in underneath the robes. I've already got an armor side that I can use that I've actually... What do I? I have a large amount of bits here and I'm not sure exactly what all of them are. As anyone who's done conversions before will know, you end up with a lot of random bits. Not all of them make sense. Nope. Okay, so this is going to be a proper conversion. Good. Okay. Pardon my indecision there. What you're going to want to do next is, where I've put the blade is just on the edge of the sleeve. You don't want to trim the sleeve. You might want to make it a bit squarer, but you don't actually want to trim it. Like, you don't want to shorten the sleeve. There we go, like that, cuts straight through it. What we do want to do, however, is... And I will urge caution again, be careful, knives are sharp. I've many years of practice and many years of injuring myself. One major thing I'm going to keep reiterating is be careful, don't hurt yourself, especially on my account. So what I would suggest also doing now, once you've cut that out, is look at where things sit on this and actually trim around the base. The reason I'm doing it like this is because I actually want the shoulders to stick out of the armour, like I had with this model. Like, even though this paint job's pretty basic, I'm probably not going to do a huge amount more to it beyond adding maybe a wash or two over the top, because I do actually really like the colours. So yes, from there I'm just going to glue this on. Now, one thing you could also do instead of using a Chaos Cultist for this is you could easily get hold of, what's it called? You could get hold of robed legs and arms from somewhere like Anvil Industries or Victoria Miniatures and build it that way. I know that some of you at the moment are protesting Games Workshop's behaviour. And while I didn't really want to say much on the matter, all power to you, it's your choice. Good luck, you're going to need it. Games Workshop don't really listen to people. Now, yeah, I'm going to just trim the shoulder a bit. One thing you should always do is trim your sprues a bit, but sometimes leaving a little nib in the sprue can actually be beneficial, as it allows things to glue. I actually added a nib in on my Imperial Knight's waist point, so it's to allow me to just lift the thing in half. It's not actually glued at the waist. Its legs are glued together and its torso is mostly attached together. But I actually have deliberately designed my knight so as it doesn't need to be reposed, so as I can just pivot it around and flip it around. Yes. So yes, now we have that arm. Now you're going to want to do the same on the other side for the shoulder, trimming it off along here. Okay, so one thing I forgot was to actually cut off the other arm. So what basically you end up doing is the back side of the autogun, I'm just trying to fiddle things around and make them sit properly. The actual hand is attached onto the gun itself, or the lower arm is attached, which is why there ends up being a bit of a triangle shape on the sleeve, because it's attached just where that break is. Basically you just carefully cut around the sleeve and remove it from the gun, often wrecking the gun in the process. I have sometimes managed to cut off without damaging the gun. and you cut the sleeve off. So yes, you can then, as I said, you can use these for guardsmen and so on. I've done a really cool conversion that used about a dozen different kits parts to this really cool flamer carrying guardsman. I wonder what I did with him anyway. Oh, I might keep him aside for kill team or whatever. Anyway, I'll get back to the main tutorial. So yes, now that I've got that cut, what I can do is actually grab the... You can actually, if you've got bits aside that'll work for it, like the aforementioned sergeant hand, you can actually mount the shield on the other arm. I mean, otherwise, well, you... never mind. Like you can just mount the shield like this on here. You may need to trim the sleeve a bit, which is what I did over here for this arm. And I'm just going to trim around the shoulder a bit again like I did before. I haven't even removed the shoulder from the thing. I'll do that for another model because I'm making a decent number of Crusaders to use as basically Crusaders. In my experience, like this was last edition, so things were different, but Crusaders actually do work as a shield wall, as a defensive distraction. Like one thing I did with them was actually to use them to block. They full on soaked bullets for my Canoness. My Canoness in that game would have been, well, she still died, but she would have died earlier. If I'd had one more model, they would have worked great. So yeah, there's this guy. He looks like he's running full tilt. I have one squad that's blocking, and I'm going to have another squad that's running, because the poses are different, and it's always nice to see some different poses and have models match up with their poses. You don't always have to. So now, for the head, before I mentioned about having a militarium tempestus helmet. Now usually it's a good idea to have the full ball in there, because these ones are designed to have a ball socket actually work with it. Unfortunately, because I used that helmet already in another conversion, I never actually left the proper ball on there, which changes how it works a little, but it does add a bit of a neck joint in. And here we go, we have a Crusader. Pretty simple little build. I mean, my talking took longer than it needed to, but yeah, like for instance, you can do other things with the back of it, like adding purity seals or scrolls. Need to add a purity seal about here, but otherwise, for him. So yes, you can also clean things up with a little bit of green stuff if you want to. You can add an Imperial Guard pouch on there, like one of the ones that comes spare with the Cadian pack, because there are a lot that come spare with the Cadian pack. Also add ceremonial daggers, all manner of cool things. It's up to you what you want to do with the model. Now one thing you can also do is glue it into the base. And again, sometimes, I know that some modelers like to some wargamers like to use custom bases. So this is the Crusader anyway. Charging in full tilt at the enemy. It's always nice to see models in a running pose that actually work. Anyway, that's enough of me ranting, and this model is completed. So yeah. So yes, thank you for watching. This Crusader tutorial is both being posted as its own video and part of a bigger video covering the various uses I have for the Chaos Cultist box. So yeah, feel free to tune in for another video where I actually show off what I do with some of the other models from the box. Anyway, thanks for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe and all the normal crap that everyone on YouTube says, and yeah. I have a comment section, feel free to leave model ideas that you'd like to see me do on the channel. I do have a limited budget, I can't do anything hugely expensive, but I'm more than willing to give cool ideas a go if you want to let me know of them. I also have a whole lot of cool conversions planned that I'll be getting to in the near future, and I'll have more Sisters of Battle coming up on the channel very soon.